Welcome to the Barry Podcast, the unofficial podcast that officially covers the hit HBO series Barry. I'm one of your hosts, Jamie G. Esquire, the fifth master of the Triple X. And I'm here with my co-host, Magnum Mills, to talk about the fourth episode of Barry, Chapter 4, Commit to You.
I am Magnum Mills, and I am very committed to Yoo-Hoo. Fuck Nestle Quick and that bunny. Thank you for checking out the Barry Podcast. Find us wherever you get your pods, on social media. Just search for Barry Podcast, at Barry Podcast. You can find our YouTube channel at JoeBlowFootballShow.com. If you could, please take 10 to 12 seconds to rate, comment, follow, like, subscribe. You know the deal. Just do one of those things. Helps us out a ton because it helps other people find our show. We greatly appreciate it. Please and thank you.
And here's the deal. I'm putting on a hat because I'm cold. But when we're covering new episodes of Barry, we spoil everything from the previous episode. So any episode of Barry could come up in our discussion. However, we're going to do things a little differently with our rewatch episodes. We will not be spoiling any future events of episodes of Barry during our recap discussion of Commit to You. At the end of our discussion, though, we will have a spoiler section where we can discuss whatever we want. And don't you worry, we'll give you a heads up when we get to that point, and you'll have plenty of time to bail out if you'd like to. Mills, hit us with this episode's deets, baby.
And this is Chapter 4, Commit to You. Originally aired Sunday, April 15th, 2018, with an estimated 511,000 viewers in the United States tuning in live. This is directed by Maggie Carey. This is the first episode of Barry that she has directed, and it's the first episode of the series not to be directed by Bill Hader. Episode was written by Sarah Soleimani. This is her first written by credit on Barry. The short plot synopsis is: Barry finds that escaping Fuchs and winning Sally's affections is harder than he thought.
And before we get into our recap discussion of the episode here, we're each going to give you our overall thoughts. And remember, no spoilers. This episode was one that the first time I watched it, I remember being not as happy with it as I was on the rewatch. So I think it held up better for whatever reason, and we'll talk about that as this episode airs on. But I thought there were some moments in this that were just absolutely hilarious. It seems like we're really starting to settle into some of these characters and kind of who they're going to be consistently. And we're also getting a couple of changes. And dude, I gotta tell you though, man, there is nothing better than Gene Cousineau spitting game, dude. The way he can just unwrap a napkin and oh my God, dude, this guy is amazing. I can't get enough of Gene Cousineau, trying to get him some sweet love. Thought it was good. There was a couple of parts here that, the whole Sally thing, getting on Barry, like, and kind of having this weird out, after, the episode starts with them together laying in bed, and she kind of kicks him out and wants to go on with her day, and kind of like, okay, we're done now, and it's just kind of, it's interesting because Barry legit thought in his head, oh, this means we're dating now. And she's like, no, we banged once. Like, what? So good episode, Magnum Mills. Enjoyed it on the rewatch, and I actually think I liked it better the second time here.
Jamie G, I definitely think that the Gene Janice storyline was absolutely my favorite part of the episode, hands down. I mean, I think pretty much Janice Moss was involved in all of my favorite parts of the episode. In like every episode of Barry, I think it's fine, but I really did not think it was the greatest because there's just not, any real standout scenes. And I think really kind of the main characters get beat down a little bit. You could argue maybe Fuchs wins a little bit, but really it's probably only Gene and maybe Janice that are really the winners here. I think Barry and Sally definitely kind of see their characters take a little bit of a beating in the eyes of the viewers. And we don't have the Chechens here. No Goran, no Hank. I think that really hurts, definitely from a balance standpoint, from a comedic standpoint. Again, not a bad episode. I don't think there's ever been a bad episode of Barry, but I think like tonally, this is a little bit different than the first three episodes. I think in some ways that were good, in some ways that maybe didn't just quite work perfectly for me.
It's time to commit to breaking down the first scene of this episode.
It is, and we pick up pretty much where we left off in the previous episode. Barry's in bed at Sally's place. Sally's on her cracked laptop, and she's busy creating a Facebook page for Barry, and she asks him to give at least one friend that's not from the acting class. Barry tells her about his friend Chris from the Marines who lives in LA, and Sally finds him almost immediately. Barry asks Sally if she wants to grab breakfast, but she says that Mike got her another audition, and Barry eventually takes a hint and leaves.
Creating a Facebook profile is really weird, and it feels like such an old thing now. But it was interesting to see it done, and you could just Barry's so out of line with like
Dude,
technology.
$20, she had to create an email address first.
Yeah,
Like she had to
yeah.
create the email. That's why she had the Facebook password or whatever, because she probably had to create an email address for Barry first. That would be my guess.
It tracks perfectly. And look, man, Barry's so like sweet and happy, and like she's kind of like moving on. And I just love when she's like, is this too military-ish? And he's like, are you playing are you playing somebody in the military? And she's like, playing a medic. And he's like, well, I was in the Marines. If you ever want to, get any notes or anything. It's like, no, I got my agent. He'll do that for me. I mean, Sally just it's highlighting just how kind of self-centered she is as a person. One thing that was interesting here is they really hammered the Marines thing here. Barry talked about it as he found Chris on Facebook. There was a shot of him twice showing his USMC tattoo, one on the back, one on the arm. And then he mentions it a third time to her when she's putting on the kind of, green kind of army-ish type coat.
I don't know why, but what she was wearing reminded me of like what like they always have like the Cuban, the communist guys wear in the movies. It looked more like a communist military uniform. That I have no basis for that. It's just based on the little medals or the colors or whatever. And on the other hand, that's kind of all over the place for Sally, right? Like she cared enough to create a Facebook page for Barry, but then she basically kicks him out and then kind of puts him on the pay no mind list later. We are spoiling this, the entirety of this episode. So I don't know. Any thoughts on why kind of she was jumping all over? And they did a nice job too of seeing how highly she thought of Mike here. Like she didn't care about getting another military opinion because Mike's an agent. Like he knows, dude.
Yeah,
He
Mike knows
the real
everything.
deal.
Mike's gonna solve all my problems, make all my dreams come true. Yeah, look, it's kind of weird, and this is one where I don't know if they did it intentionally. My guess is they did, but you kind of ride the episode before this, episode 3, kind of on this high note of like, oh wow, this is cool. I really like Barry and Sally together. Like this is kind of a cool thing. I'm looking forward to this. And then they immediately shit on that in this episode. And like Sally's like, ew, no, like we're not a thing. Like stop being weird. And it's kind of like this weird thing. And I don't know that awkwardness between the two is the best use of Sally and Barry together. It's probably been my least favorite thing thus far. And as far as how do you use those two actors in the same kind of scene. So I don't know, man. I wasn't big on it. And I think it kind of brought this episode down a little bit, honestly.
I definitely agree with you there, but I guess it's a little kind of like cringy realistic because if you've ever been in a spot where you're trying to subtly suggest someone should leave and they won't take the hint, it can be frustrating. So I'm trying to make myself see Sally's side of that because that could definitely suck if you're dropping like, well, I need to take a shower and then take the kids to the school and then go to the store. And they're like, okay, I'll be here when you get back. Like, let's start over. I need to take the kid. It's a little, and it makes me feel old because, you shouldn't really like not exist if you're not on Facebook because I'm not on Facebook. So maybe I don't exist. And B, I'm old enough to remember when you went to college, there was an actual Facebook. They give it to freshmen. It was pictures of everybody in the names, kind of like a college yearbook. So it would help you make friends or whatever. And as soon as you got to school, man, the first thing that happened would be the upperclassmen dudes would find Facebooks and make photocopies so they could fucking skeeve on all the freshman chicks. That really happened. And that's the origin of Facebook. That's why it existed. For dudes to skeeve on chicks. Which is probably why it still exists, except for scamming people now too.
Yeah. Well, Zuckerberg, you stayed true, put it that way. And
yeah, fun in the metaverse, brother.
Yeah. And speaking of staying true, we got Fuchs. And Fuchs is back at the hotel and he tells Barry about his adventures with the Chechkins. Fuchs explains that Barry is going to raid the Bolivian stash house for the Chechkins, and he gives Barry his cut of the cash for the Paco hit. They're both going to be staying in LA. Fuchs gives Barry the info on the stash house as well as the fold-out couch, and the 2 drawers before he heads out. Fuchs is just you almost need to watch Fuchs scenes like 20 times because so much little suggestive stuff is going on. The way he explains stuff, the way he sells you, the way he kind of sidesteps around big important things. It's like, how many guys? Yeah, whoever's there, I guess, 5, 6. I mean,
I mean, Fuchs is management. He doesn't have to care, right? He doesn't. He's a big picture guy. He did the setup, and you are right that he is like glowing, despite the fact that he is still obviously like battered amongst the face and everything. Yet he is still just like, I mean, peacocking here basically. Pretty impressive stuff, especially the cash. Like that's definitely the little like damn like I have not had a false bottom suitcase in a while. But it seems like if there was that much cash in the false bottom of a suitcase, you'd have about an inch of actual like storage space within the suitcase. But a lot of cash though, and so you get why Fuchs is kind of like feeling it, right? But not really maybe the greatest management style, right? I mean, as much as he can read the signals for the Chechens, he seems to be struggling kind of like with reading Barry a little, right?
I think so. I mean, he's trying to stick to the course, and I think he was so used to Barry just being in like this autopilot sense where he could just completely control him and like out mind him. I mean, maybe he was playing a major mind fuck on him. Who knows? But I do think that now Barry's kind of snapped out of that, and he has a sense of purpose, and so he's fighting back. And Fuchs is kind of like, I don't know how to handle this. I don't like this because it's just been do whatever I say and you do it perfectly and we make a ton of money. Now you're pushing back a little bit. So I think that's what's going on here.
Yeah, and pretty much the rest of the main points of the scene are just Fuchs just shining. We don't get the Chechens in this episode. Fuchs does talk about Goran though when he says we ride his hairy shoulders to the moon. I just shout out Fuchs. That was a good one. And also, when Barry says this isn't a hit, this is a raid, that would be an awesome title for an album by a punk band. That's like a great title for like your third album for a hardcore punk band. I think that would be pretty great. And in the next scene, we go back to one of my favorite places, the IT department of the LAPD, where they brought in a specialist to retrieve the video footage from the locked lipstick camera. The specialist tries to explain what he's doing, but Janice does not have any time for that bullshit. Long story short, he can retrieve the footage, but will take 1 to 4 days. Don't you know that there has to be somebody who can talk to the customers who can also talk to the tech people? Someone who's a people person, someone who doesn't jump to conclusions?
Yes. What's wrong with you people? The lack of patience by Janice and the fact that the Russian tech guy wants to like explain and Janice just doesn't care. It's very funny, dude. It works a lot. And the fact that it's like, okay, it's their fault that they have to go to this guy and he's just, slow with his delivery because of the accent. He wants to explain every single thing, and there's zero patience from Janice and company. So works well for me.
I mean, works well. This is one of easily the top scenes of the episode for me, and the whole thing has to run less than a minute. First, you get my tech guy too. He was my MVP from the previous episode. Like when Janice is just shitting on this other guy, he just gives like this like look of solidarity. Like, I understand where you're coming from, man. If you've ever been in that position in a job, you appreciate that. And also, when the Russian guy's looking around and he's trying to figure out something on the computer, the tech guy too is like, "Hey, man, don't click on any open tabs. Jamie G, never click another man's tabs." I stand by that.
Noted. Duly noted.
And you also kind of know why, like the Russian tech got off on a little bit of a bad foot with Janice because he asked like,
"So which one of you typed the wrong password to lock a camera? Huh?"
Why is that important?
And she had to come in early for this bullshit again. And you see Loach when the only couple of times you see him, dude looks like he's still about to burst into tears at any given minute. I mean, again, this is one of the shortest scenes in the episode, yet easily one of my favorites. I mean, honestly, LAPD tech support might be my second favorite setting on the entire show at this point, behind only Goran's garage.
Oh, the legendary Goran's garage. My, how we missed you this episode. But what we didn't miss is Gene. And we see Gene waiting for an audition when he gets a call from Janice. She's returning a message Gene left her about Ryan Madison. Gene tells her that he has a bombshell for her, but he's not comfortable talking about it over the phone. Instead, they'll meet at Stella Luna at 8:30. The reservation will be under Neil Patrick Harris. Gene finds he gets better seating that way. He hangs up to go to his audition, and Janice Googles Gene Cousineau. Gene is reading for man in back of line, and you get the feeling that he does this a lot.
One of the things that can be maybe the hardest to buy is that Janice is kind of like going along with this. She seems kind of hard ass to everybody else, and she's kind of like giving like who goes for coffee at 8:30? Like I thought that was code for if you're just listening to the podcast, I'm doing the universal signal for sexual intercourse, but who gets coffee at 8:30 unless you work the night shift?
It was so smooth, though. I think you're underestimating, Mills. I think you're
Carlos Santana and Rob Thomas over here, dude. You're so smooth.
It was so smooth. Gene Cousineau has game, okay? We just need to put it like that. This whole elaborate plan, he called her, left her a message about this bombshell, gets her on the phone. He's smooth as shit. He's playing it perfectly here, and he gets her in a romantic one-on-one setting. Shout out Gene Cousineau and his game, dude. Gene's game. That could have been a contender for this podcast, too. Goran's Garage, Gene's game.
Yeah, I get it, man. He's a little bit of your brother from another mother over there, whatever. I do think what was interesting, too, is the fact that his audition, like, kind of goes bad. Like, he goes in, it's not like he does bad, but he seems resigned, like, right at the very beginning, that he's not going to get the part, but he's just going through the motions, and he recognizes the casting director. They know him. He obviously does this a lot. I mean, he says, the whole bullshit about he doesn't, I'm not, I don't want to be on the phone or whatever. And like, he doesn't give a fuck about being on the phone. I don't know. Any thoughts on like kind of how they're portraying Gene now, as far as that, like his acting career, probably isn't as successful as maybe we would have thought in the first couple episodes.
Yeah, I think this comes as a shock, right? I kind of was taken back by this. Like, wow, this
is the kind of roles his students are auditioning for, and he's like doing the same shit that they are.
Because we've seen now Sally audition but she's had longer lines than this. I mean, Gene literally had 4 or 5 words, two quick
man
sentences.
In back of line. That's a credited extra, as we've learned from if you ever watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, check out Night Pod Cometh. But Gangbangs movie, we're that's a featured extra. It's an extra, gets a line.
Yep, it's featured extra, and so man, it's tough to see that Gene does that, and he just feels kind of like very used to it. It seemed very, very common appearance for him, the way he's just used to the whole grind of going in and doing it. So yeah, a little bit of surprise there for the character arc of Gene.
Hey, we're waiting here.
Any thoughts on Gene's Brooklyn accent?
I liked it. Gene can do no wrong for me. He wins.
Yeah, especially again, his wardrobe. I've never seen a jacket that was over 50% pockets. Shout out Gene Cousineau. Maybe we could come up with some kind of wardrobe. I mean, I don't even know where that's custom. That's custom, dude. You can't get that many pockets off the rack, at least as far as I've shopped. I don't know. I've never shopped at J. Crew and bought what was on the mannequin. But we'll talk about that a little bit after we talk about Sally's meeting at Mike's office. She's there rehearsing for her upcoming audition as the Army medic. As she finishes her audition, she asks Mike if he'll officially be her agent if she books the part. Mike explains that he's at the point where he has to make a decision. Is he going to sign Sally, or is he going to fuck her? Sally is thrown off, and she explains that she wants to keep the relationship professional. Mike laughs and exclaims he was just joking, and Sally nervously laughs along with him. Jamie G, I don't think Mike was joking.
Not at all. He was not joking at all. And he basically was just giving any kind of hip pocketing, like any kind of like effort on this whatsoever, is just simply because he wants to sleep with Sally. And, you feel really bad for Sally as this episode goes on. And then you kind of hate, kind of how she acts because of it a little bit. It's almost like she's punishing Barry because Mike just wanted to bang her and not actually help her with her career. It's kind of a weird tandem.
Yeah, or just at least like a triggering incident. And you can kind of get it because, you saw like kind of the reverence when she would rather have Mike's opinion because he's an agent than Barry's, even though he was actually in the military and would probably have a more relevant, opinion to offer her as far as her character or whatever.
Yep.
But it just, yeah, I mean, you get that this is pretty much them portraying like this is a thing that happens in Hollywood or whatever. And I think they kind of, went out of their way to kind of like maybe do the scene a little bit over the top. Like the dialogue for this like is terrible. Where like, oh, like I forget what exactly it was, but you need to call me Miss like her full name, or it just was not good.
Boy, she laid it on pretty thick with the accent, but it wasn't terrible. I've heard worse, man. I've heard worse.
I thought it was supposed to be, intentionally bad, but I am really shout out Sarah Goldberg. Like when, Mike says a thing and the camera just kind of just stays on her and you see her face just like drop because this is the man who was going to again fulfill her hopes and dreams and she respected his opinion. I think it's one of those things like he knows it's not a joke. She knows it's not a joke, but they both have to say it's a joke and her heart just breaks in that minute. And you can just see it again on her face. One of the best face acting shows on television.
Yeah, she really shines. You can kind of, and even as she's trying to recover and be like, sorry about that, like you can just tell she's really feeling that when she just realized, damn, this dude's only calling me because he wants to sleep with me. It's a shitty thing, and it's also, and you know what? Unfortunately, this is something that happens every day in Hollywood in lots of industries, and so I'm glad kind of shedding a light on how shitty that is, and I think that was kind of the intention here. Is I mean, everybody knows Harvey Weinstein, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah, and I'm also scared to Google the term hip pocketing because I feel that has to be also some sort of sexual thing, but I don't know that I want to know what it is. We go from there to the acting class where Barry wants to know what the hell's up with Sally because he sends her another text. She apparently is ignoring him at this point, and he gets a Facebook message from Chris, who Sally added as a friend for him. Chris wants to hang out. We also hear that Natalie is having a party that she's hosting tonight. Sally mentioned that earlier. Gene arrives at the class, and the class gives him a standing ovation just for showing up. They get to work, and Barry finally gets to do his big Glengarry Glen Ross scene. But he bombs right out of the gate, and Gene gives him some tough love, similar to what we saw him do with Sally earlier in the season. A lot of what Gene says hits pretty close to home for Barry. But however, we don't get to see him use it on stage in the scene. Instead, we smash cut to Fuchs hitting golf balls at a driving range. Barry harnesses what Gene said to him in a rant at Fuchs, telling Fuchs that he's not doing the Stash House raid and Fuchs is going back to Ohio. Fuchs takes all of this in stride and just continues to hit golf balls. In Jamie G, one of the best things in this scene is when Barry's yelling, they kind of do an over the shoulder shot, and you see this one guy just behind them. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see him now just staring because Barry is just screaming all of these things out loud. And again, I always love the parts of these shows where you see like actual real life people interacting with these, over the top, almost cartoonish characters, and the way a real person would react to this kind of thing.
Dude, shout out to like Fuchs, who just lets him speak his mind and then just casually uses his driver to just shoo away the paperwork that Barry slammed down in the envelope, and then proceeds to take a swing. And it didn't look like he got much range on that drive, did it, Magnum Mills? It looked like I mean, what do you think? Over under 150? I think it's probably under. I don't even know that he even cleared.
Might have rolled out to like a $165, but hooked way left. It would have hit the fence.
Yeah, I mean, no way he got 200 on that, right?
Yeah, Fuchs has got a little kind of janky swing. He needs to work on that more. But again, Ohio can't hit balls year round. You can in California. And Jamie, just out of curiosity, have you ever heard somebody say, "And I'll bet you tits to donuts"?
I don't think I did, but I do like it. I'm not upset about it. You can use it anytime you want, Magnum Mills.
Is there a tit to donut ratio? I mean, is this something I've been missing as a Canadian? Is this a Tim Hortons thing? I mean, I guess we're gonna have to look that one up. We didn't get to see it, but Jamie G, do you think Barry killed the scene after Gene's direction, kind of the way we saw Sally do it when Gene did a similar tactic earlier?
I think he did, and I think it was the first time he taps into some of that just pure emotion. Obviously he did it when he did his monologue, But I think you saw that kind of face of rage on him right before, it cuts to him on the golf course carrying that same level of rage. But I think he shined there a little bit, tapping in just to his own deep anger and desperation to get rid of the problems in his life and just focus on, acting.
Just shout out Gene Cousineau. Dude, don't you wish every time you walked into a room you got a standing O? Like, just how good is that for you? Maybe that's what gives him the confidence with Janice or whatever. But he doesn't do anything. He just walks in, goddamn standing ovation. That's what do I got to do to get one of those, man? I'll teach an acting class.
I'm telling you what, dude. Gene's loaded with great quotes here, man. This was a good scene, and again, we needed Gene in this because without the Chechkins, without some of the other stuff going on, he really needed to carry this, and I thought he did for the most part. Every time he got a chance.
Oh yeah, I do got to say that Stephen Root's golf swing was really like he is not a golfer, but maybe that's why he's at the range. He's trying to get his game on, improve that swing. And just shout out Gene's line here to Barry when he's trying to motivate him when he says,
Barry, I gave you this monologue for a reason. To see if you were capable of playing a character with even the mildest set of balls.
Mildest set of balls, another one I don't know that I've really encountered. Like a mild set of balls? Like what is a mild set of? I've heard small, or weak or like all sorts of, but like mildest balls. It feels like you're putting like
set of balls,
you're like you're putting wing sauce on your testicles is what it sounds like here.
Well, I think
it's mostly butter.
Yeah, I don't think we've got a Rocky Mountain oyster situation here. What I think we got is, the fact that like he doesn't have any balls, so he's got to kind of show it. A wild set of balls would be like, man, that dude will jump off a building, But this guy, he's got the mildest set of balls. He doesn't, basically that's like you have no balls, but if you do anything, you'll have a mild set of balls here.
Okay, so top end is like your swoop from Drop Zone. In bottom end, you're like Frasier's brother from Frasier. All right, I guess that works. And shout out Stephen Root once again. Tremendous face acting, all that good stuff. And with the acting, Sally is at her audition. She's kind of waiting in a waiting room, and she's surrounded by a lot of women in camo with their breast pushed up very high. And she's sitting there, she's running her lines in her head, and the assistant comes up and explains the situation. They didn't have her on the list, so they called Mike to straighten it out, and Mike said that he doesn't represent Sally. Sally is clearly embarrassed, and she apologizes profusely and gets the hell out of there. She makes it back to her car, where she finally lets it all out and sobs uncontrollably.
Yeah, and again, great work here by Sarah Goldberg. I mean, this is, when she's banging the steering wheel and just screaming. I mean, she realized that like, okay, he wasn't joking in the office, and now he's just completely dropped me to screw me over because I didn't sleep with him. And that's just got to be one of the world's worst feelings, man, is someone who thinks of themselves as a professional, and you can't, that's your reality. That sucks, dude. I feel for Sally here.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly, it's not even Barry she's talking to. We'll get to it coming up when she says like, don't tell me what I am. And I think that's kind of what it is here. And shout out the actress who is playing the assistant here, because the way she's playing it, I assumed that this is the first time she's done this. Like she understands the hip pocket thing, and she knows exactly what happened here. So she has like sympathy for Sally, but she can't really do anything about it because she's just the assistant or whatever. And it's just kind of like this kind of unspoken, like, just empathy or whatever. So that's kind of what I took away for it, being a shorter scene and probably up there with my favorites in the episode, but definitely devastating for Sally. And also, I didn't know she had a car. Like, why is she asking everyone for rides all the time?
Yeah, good point. She does have her own car. But yeah, this was, a little bit of the sad truth about Hollywood. And speaking of cars, we cut to Barry driving his car to Natalie's party. He fantasizes about a future with Sally. He used some of his cash from the Paco hit to get a new car, some new clothes, and he bought a new MacBook Pro to replace Sally's cracked laptop. As Barry exits his car and heads into the house, we see that Fuchs has followed him. Natalie greets Barry, but he quickly ditches her when he sees Sally. He asks about her audition, and Sally lies and said it went well. He tries to give her the laptop, but it really seems to throw her off, and she quickly excuses herself to go talk to Natalie. Mills, I'm not going to lie, dude. As somebody who, has a lot of respect for people who get me gifts, and anyone out there, if you want to get me a gift, I'm happy to share my Venmo and my Cash App with you. It's the best way to gift me. But I don't like how she acted here. I couldn't imagine someone doing something so nice for me and me just completely being an asshole to them. And this was bona fide, like, grade A asshole treatment that she gave to Barry here. Like, you can't be more of an asshole, kind of.
I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes.
Yeah, I mean, you get that Sally was in a weird place, right?
Sure.
I don't quite know that I can like super empathize with her here. But on the other hand, I mean, if it's me and like somebody hands me something that's the equivalent of 3 months of my rent, I don't know how I turn that down. I mean, I don't, in this country, what is it like? At least half the population is basically like like at maximum, they have like 2 rent checks in the bank. Like that's kind of a weird reaction. You get why it could be too much. And I do want to just shout out the like his Barry's little fantasy there, the fact that they got John Hamm to show up there, because John Hamm is supposed to be like, that's just off of kind of the Mad Men, and like I think he was he a sexiest man in the world or that kind of, but chicks love him. The fact that Barry's like, oh yeah, you can go take a shit in my guest room, John Hamm, and he even literally says, like, calls him John Hamm and everything. I literally laughed out loud at that. Probably maybe my favorite comedy bit, from the whole episode. And just great stuff here overall. I mean, Jamie G, have you ever bought what was on the mannequin? Like, just looked at the mannequin and be like, I want that exactly.
No, and I've never actually even thought about it either, which is crazy.
Barry rolled his goddamn cuffs up, like he had like little flood pants going and everything.
Yo, dude,
he had the bike messenger bag. Like I didn't even notice that at first. The messenger bag.
Yeah, the whole
over the shoulder. Yeah.
And it was such a stark difference from how Barry usually dressed, with the high pants pulled up above his waist, tucked in, cargo pants, tucked in shirt, buttoned all the way up, just kind of a much different look for Barry. Did you like the new look, or do you prefer the old Barry?
Definitely classic Barry. I'm not really a J. Crew guy. We also did get kind of a weird exchange with Barry and Natalie when Natalie's talking about her actor friend.
How do you guys know each other again?
He's just like an old friend. We were like in this secret group together. It was like a special anonymous group for people with problems.
Jamie G, if somebody told you they were in a special anonymous group for people with problems, would you take it as well as Barry took it?
No, I would really have to chew on that, man. I would be very puzzled and confused. Is that like alcohol?
Very vague. It could be anything, basically.
It could be anything, dude.
It could be from Alcoholics Anonymous to like victims who survived a Highlander,
to people who want to kill but don't. Like, it could be anything. I mean, there is a
people who have killed and then get caught.
Right. Could be a cannibal group.
Cannibals, cannibals. All right, it took us less than 20 seconds into cannibals. We're on point.
Yeah. I mean, we got to cannibals really quickly. Interesting tease there. I really hope they build on that. I think that would be something super fun if we find out something crazy about Natalie. They could go anywhere with that. I mean, that's a wild statement to make to somebody. I wonder if Natalie was like, maybe I just overshared. I mean, I don't know. Barry took it well though. So
yeah, I mean, she's in that group with Zach Burrows. So they shout out Mocap Boy. And also shout out Sally.
Real quick, there's no Zach and there's no Mr. Burrow. It's Zach Burrows, and it's only Zach Burrows.
Oh,
it's kind of like Dane Cook. You never just say Dane or Cook. It's Dane Cook. It's Dane Cook. It's Zach Burrows.
Well, congratulations, Jamie G. You've said the name Dane Cook 3 more times than anybody else has in the last 10 years. So bully to you. Bully to Sally. Dan. Like, again, I didn't want to complain about the car thing, but like her place seemed decent. Like a MacBook Pro, 3 months rent. Like, really? Like, is her place that cheap? Like, I want to move to where Sally lives, apparently, because that's pretty good for one MacBook Pro for 3 months. And Barry's still at Natalie's party, he makes his way over to the bar and he gets a text from Chris. Chris and two of his buddies want a party, so Barry invites him over to Natalie's. When he looks up from his phone, Fuchs is standing next to him, ordering a drink. Barry asks what Fuchs is doing there, and Fuchs explains that he followed Barry after the outburst of the driving range, and he confronts Barry about still attending the acting class. Fuchs gives Barry the information about the stash house once again, and tells him that he can have the acting thing, he just can't screw up what they have going. Fuchs leaves after implying that he'll tell everyone who Barry really is if he doesn't go along with the plan. And once again, Jamie G, it seems like somehow no one notices Fuchs except the bartender. And during the whole thing, like there's a couple shots of the bartender just kind of wide-eyed looking at them like, is anybody else hearing that? Like, is that kind of like a little bit heightened reality all right with you? Or, you know, do you think that someone should come up and like, oh, Barry, who's your friend?
It worked here because they were kind of off to the side. You know, one thing is interesting is they never showed the bartender, right, who's pouring them the three fingers of the Glenlivet. But I do think that it works here. And, you know, Fuchs just plays it so perfectly while making him nervous, but, you know, and also kind of starting to, you know, psychologically abuse him a little bit too with the, come on, we're friends. I'm just mad you weren't honest with me.
Meanwhile, Fuchs is all beat up still, his face.
Yeah, he's all beat up. I mean, clearly he shouldn't be in public right now. People would be like, what happened? You know? So it's a huge chance, but it also shows, look, Fuchs is not going to go away, and he's just going to do whatever he needs to do to continue his profitable business. That's what it tells you more than anything.
Yeah, and he gets a nice body shot in when he leaves, when he's like,
what are you, a bike messenger?
Barry, I mean, it'd be a high-class bike messenger. I'm not well-versed in the, you know, appearance of bike messengers. I know he has the over-the-shoulder bag, and also the rolled-up pants, which helps your, you know, pants not to get caught in the spokes of your bike. I do know that much. But what I don't know is why Janice Moss shows up with this interview/date with Gene. I mean, who gets coffee at a restaurant at 8:30 for a police interview? She arrives and Gene turns the charm up to 11. But Janice wants to get right down to business. Gene's bombshell is simply that Ryan Madsen's real name is Richard Krempf. But of course, Janice already knows this. Undaunted, Gene asks if she prefers the red or the white. They eventually go with the red, and Janice continues to question Gene about Ryan. Gene admits that Ryan was not a good actor, and he continues to flirt with her. She's all business, and she prepares to leave. Gene gets her to stay by promising her that her chicken a la king will be the best piece of poultry that she's ever had in her mouth. If not, she can kick him right in the genitals. Jamie G, who you've alluded to it, Gene's game, dude. I think it might be a little over the top, but you seem to be like, what is just maximum charm here?
This is legendary level of introducing something, the best thing you've ever had in your mouth, the best meat in your mouth, and B, genitals. Okay, whether it's kicking them or not, this is next level. He's done this all without even touching her. Okay, he didn't even have to engage in contact, you know, or give false sense of hope and love. He just literally smoothly puts this in. This is next level macking right here, dude. Gene has got some serious game.
Oh, so you're saying like him and Mark Morrison? I'm down with a Gene Mark Morrison crossover. It is just like the energy is just, I mean, weird. I mean, just, yeah, you're right. I mean, the phrasing is so kind of like on the nose. And, you know, Gene does get the one good dig in on Ryan when he says, so, like his performances, he was completely devoid of drama. So Gene is perfectly willing to shit on a dead man's grave just to advance his game. And then Janice, after she has a little bit of wine, you know, there's the chicken, and you kind of see her, and she's like, you know, she's like, right in the balls. Just the way she says it, kind of, the Gene's like, and then he does
just backs up and shows. So what has he done here? He's introduced the idea of her doing something with his balls. Okay, I'm telling you, this is a mastery class of how to get, you know, get laid. And Gene Cousineau was given the performance of his life. And you gotta love one subtle thing that Janice does here. And this is where I was like, man, their energy together as actor and actress here is fantastic. She's about to leave. He slides in with that best poultry in your mouth, kick me right in the genitals thing. And she slowly sits back down, and you just see her eyes, she kind of smirks, and she just like calmly, she still remained eye contact with him. She just slides over the red wine and just begins to, and that's when she's like, right in the balls. He got her. It hooked. It worked. Gene, you're the man, bro.
I did not think that he had that in him. Apparently he does. From there, we cut back to Natalie's. Chris and his two buddies have arrived, and Barry and Chris are making small talk about Chris's family and Barry's budding acting career. Chris's two buddies, Taylor and Vaughn, are acting rowdy, and they draw the ire of Natalie. Barry points out Sally as his girlfriend, and the other guys give him shit because Sally is flirting with Zach Burrows, the big star at the party. Barry goes up to them and embarrasses himself and Sally, who storms away. Barry follows her, and she lays into him for calling her his girl and tells him that buying the laptop for her was fucking weird. Sally leaves right as Natalie comes in, and Natalie asks Barry to control his friends. Vaughn and Taylor are fighting, and they bump into Zach Burrows. That leads Zach Burrows to leave with Sally. Again, there's really no winners in this scene, right? I mean, like, Natalie's party's getting screwed. Zach Burrows has to leave. Sally's upset. Barry's upset. Taylor and Vaughn are fighting. Chris can't be loving this. I mean, who's winning here?
Dude, no one. And Barry kind of knows. And this is the first time we've kind of seen Barry drunk, right? And he's kind of tying one on with his buddies, and he's
pounding a little bit. And you notice they brought like 2 18 packs of Budweiser cans with them. It was very specific, and they're all drinking Bud. I'm guessing that's kind of like trying to be a little bit of a military thing where they're used to just drinking like warm cans of beer if they get to drink at all. So they're just pounding warm cans of Budweiser. Everyone else at the party's getting drinks from the the bartender, mixers and that kind of thing. And no, they're pounding warm cans of Bud.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable here. And so, they're rowdy, and they kind of sprinkled that in the kitchen scene a little bit earlier. You got to love Barry here, though, right? Where he's just like, he's having a horrible night. His day started so great, and now his day has turned into, it's pretty bad for him right here, isn't it?
You can see why he started drinking, basically. And honestly, in this scene, like I said, everybody's losing. Even Natalie, like, she thinks it's a big thing. Like, oh, like, this Zach Burrows is a star. Dude, this guy flew to South Africa for 9 months, flew coach. He did mocap. He's not going to be on screen at all. They're not using his voice, and he's not even sure he's going to be in the credits. Not great, Bob. Really not great.
No. And I love, well, they fly you there, because she's basically trying to see, like, did they give you first class? And like, they fly you there.
They flew me there. Oh, and even though how pretentious kind of the actors can be, like Sally's little bit when she's like, we first hear her talk to him, she's like,
God, it must have been such a challenge to become a wooden boy who then becomes a real boy. I love playing transformative roles like that.
I think that's, again, the show taking a shot at like actors for being extremely pretentious sometimes.
Absolutely. And also kind of taking a shot at, you're not that special. Like, your role is basically bullshit. No one's even going to know that you're in it.
You're not your fucking khakis.
Exactly. So it's like, so I think they do a great job of that. We've seen that kind of throughout the 4 episodes here of kind of the shot at, just kind of the bullshit of Hollywood. And so I think that's cool. It's something that I actually like about this show, where they do it in a way where it's not like over the top, but it's just a subtle kind of dig here and there of like, yeah, this is some bullshit in Hollywood. And it's present in every episode so far, at least.
Well, if that was subtle, what comes next is not. Back at the restaurant, dinner is over, and Janice and Gene are doing some really weird flirting. But the chicken wasn't that great, and Gene is crushed. He then impresses Janice by crying on demand. It's a talent. He can teach her. Just then, Janice gets a text, and she has to leave. Gene tries to set up another day for next Tuesday, but Janice says that she can't. She's investigating the murder of one of his students. But she does admit that she had a good time, and she needed it. She thanks Gene and leaves. Dude, let's just roll the scene, or listen to the scene, whatever.
Look at your little hands. You are so little. I could rock you like a baby.
I would like you to rock me like a baby.
I could drop kick you in the middle of a restaurant. Everybody would applaud, and then I would beat the fuck out of you.
Dude, Jamie G.
This was.
What about this energy? Just like you can feel like they're on the same wavelength, but it feels like they might be the only two people on the planet that actually tune into this wavelength.
Absolutely. It's you get the sense of like, okay, this might be the perfect match ever of like any
It's just like
couple
another fisherman can always tell another fisherman or whatever, some kind of weird like how G knew to.
I'm telling you right now, though, he got her from all business, taking out her pad and working, to enjoying wine, to talking about his genitals, to now she's basically saying, I can alpha you and be your dominatrix. And he's all about it, dude. Like this got into like some kind of kink foreplay shit here, dude. I really think that's where they're going with this. And it was strange and at times uncomfortable. But I'll tell you, the way he plays the air piano on the table was somewhat soothing. He's got game, dude. He really does. His little hands.
Oh,
Uncle Jack would not be happy.
Subs are people too, dude. Subs are people too.
They are. And Uncle Jack, shout out, again, Always Sunny, and our you should check out the Night Pod Cometh, but Uncle Jack would not be happy with these little hands. That's for sure.
No, and at the end of the scene, Jean even gets the best last line when she admits that she had a good time or whatever, and Jean's like,
Oh, Janice.
What?
Well, you're the detective, and I got the confession. Me lady.
no, so you had the good parakeet line earlier we didn't shout out. Like she's gonna go home, throw up her fedora, and have a drink with her parakeet. Jean got some good zingers for Jean this episode.
Oh, dude, he's a winner. And we see that Janice unfortunately has to leave Jean, where she goes back to LAPD, where the specialist has managed to retrieve the footage from the lipstick cam. They skip to the part where Barry shoots into the car, but the footage, well, it's just not good enough to make out his face. Still, Janice thinks this will help them. Back at the party, Barry leaves with Chris, Taylor, and Vaughn. They're gonna get more beer and meet at the Dodgers Stadium parking lot. Barry pulls out his wad of Paco money, but Chris declines. Vaughn notices that wad of hundos, and he says, I'm going to ride with Barry. In the car, Vaughn finds the plans for the stash house raid and tells Barry whatever this is, he wants in.
Yeah, that was probably the first episode that ended like on a down note for Barry or us, right? Like every episode was kind of him coming up a little bit to this point, and this was a little bit of a crash. Like when even Fuchs, remember, he's like, "Oh, Barry, put these back in your car," and apparently we didn't see it, but Barry went out and put the plans back in the car at some point. Vaughn, the whole episode, Barry is very free with the cash, the outfit, the car, everything like that. Like you get the idea that maybe Fuchs made a mistake, like he gave him too much money this time. Maybe theoretically that's why he wasn't giving Barry more money before, but also he's probably keeping it, not like just in a savings account for Barry. He was probably just taking a bigger share. So I don't know, man. It just feels like definitely a little bit, probably the biggest curveball we've been thrown at the end of an episode, I think, so far.
Yeah, I think it also kind of, look, this is the first time we saw Barry get drunk. Barry's drunk. He's kind of pulling out his cash. He's kind of down on life right now, dude. I think, he got the girl and he was in love and everything was great. And then she just shit on him today. And it wasn't a welcome shit. He didn't want a brown shower. He was like, I just bought you this laptop and you don't even like it. It's tough, man. So I think he gets drunk and he's kind of careless a little bit about stuff. And, it's a weird, you're right. It's kind of a weird one for Barry here at the end.
Oh, I did love when I think it was Nick came out with the laptop to give back to Barry with the bow still on it. And I thought for a minute that he was just going to give it to Nick, like, "Oh, here, you keep it" or something. But he takes it, and then Nick's like says something like along the lines like, "Oh, I really love your outfit." And that's like you see the look over Barry's face, like, "Shit, this outfit really does suck, doesn't it?" Like just because Nick liked it, that made him realize that, like, oh yeah, probably not great. And yeah, Vaughn's final quote was just, and whenever anyone says auto parts, I think about Tommy Callahan and Callahan Auto Parts, but...
What? Auto parts? You're driving this car, you got those sick new threads in that fat fucking wad of hundreds from Auto Parts? It's a very well-managed company.
Jamie G, there are a lot of very well-managed companies, but not many of them come with fat fucking wads of hundos.
No, they don't, especially for just regular employees. That's for sure. That was a big stack of hundos there. And you get the sense that Vaughn he's going to be opportunistic with this, right? I mean, or Taylor rather, is going to be opportun. Is it Vaughn or Taylor?
I believe that was Vaughn, but it's not really clear within the episode.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think it might actually be Taylor with the bald head, but either way, you get the impression that he's going to be opportunistic and latch on. And you know what? It gives you the sense that maybe this stash house business has some legs.
It's not like Fuchs really cares. I mean, one guy, two guy, it's whoever's there. And that brings us to the end of our recap. And before we hand out the awards for the episode, let's see what other people thought about Commit to You. On IMDb, the episode has a rating of 7.7. That doesn't sound bad, but it actually makes it the second lowest rated episode of Barry, ahead of only Chapter 2, Use It. Jamie G, is this one of the worst 2 episodes of Barry?
I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes. I think this one just was too down. I didn't like the dramatic, from Barry and Sally to this version of Barry and Sally together. It was just too close, too quick. No Chechkins. You got Gene kind of winning, and Fuchs delivers where he can, but it's good Fuchs. All Fuchs is good Fuchs, but it's kind of manipulative Fuchs here a little bit towards Barry. So it's tough because it's just all piling on to Barry here. I'm going to say yes. It felt like the worst of the 4 that we've watched so far. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I think you said the magic words. You don't have any of the Chechens in here. No Goran, no Hank, especially. Honestly, other than Gene and Janice, it really feels like this episode makes us dislike the main characters more, especially Barry and Sally. Neither one of them really come out looking great out of this episode. And overall, I think probably the worst thing I can think out of is the fact that you could probably do the 90-second previously on and sum up this episode, and you really wouldn't miss much. Again, I think the main highlight is simply the Gene and Janice romance and the LAPD tech department. In as bad as it is, like there's a lot of movement for Barry and Sally, but it's a lot of sound and fury that doesn't quite amount to much. So
couldn't agree more, Magnum Mills.
Yeah. And that brings us to the point where we usually try to do a little thing where we can't really improve on the episode, but maybe we could improve on the title, because even Bill Hader has admitted, like, they really don't try that hard with the episode title. So Jamie G, can you come up with a better episode title for this than Commit to You?
There's some definite contenders here, man. Definite contenders. I really like How Many Guys. I think that has some merit. I thought that was a great thing that they could use here. I also really like.
See, instead of How Many Guys, I go with Whoever's There. I think that would be better. Whoever's There, because it's a little more vague.
I like Whoever's There too.
You'd probably like the Mildest Set of Balls. You were very in favor
of
these,
Set of Balls would be
these
a good
very
one.
like low-level buffalo sauce balls that you were talking about before.
Yeah, I definitely like the Mildest Set of Balls. I mean, Rock Me Like a Baby would be a good one too, honestly.
It makes me want to think Rock You Like a Hurricane, but Rock Me Like a Baby, I think that's good. And he's an agent. He gets it, because I think that was kind of a big part of the episode with Mike or whatever would be pretty good. And I Want In. Like that would just, because that's the end line of the episode. And that would, like, if you saw that, we would kind of like suck you in for the next one. So.
Absolutely. But what about the cracked laptop, right? I mean, that's an interesting.
That sounds like an Encyclopedia Brown joint, like, or Hardy Boys or some shit like that.
The mystery of the cracked laptop.
I would like to, Barry, I would like to do like one mystery, like a whodunit episode. That would actually be kind of cool. So I'd be there for that. Or they could do Clue. Have like acting class do Clue. That would be cool.
Yeah, Barry does Clue would be very cool. And you know what else is cool? Us expressing how we feel about Commit to You by handing out our awards for this very fine episode. We'll start by each choosing our favorite quote or dialogue exchange from the episode. I gotta go with that very strange exchange with the little hands between the strange flirt between Gene and Janice. It's bizarre, it's weird, it's strange, but I don't know, man. I was feeling it a little bit.
That was weird in the best possible way. It was like, two strange birds finding themselves or whatever. You know what? I have to go with a really random one that I thought we were going to bring up in our discussion, and it didn't come up. And this was just my favorite. It's when Sasha from the acting class is talking to Zach Burrows,
So I
and
guess
she
I
says,
have technically had my first audition, but it was just like in North Hollywood, in this guy's apartment, and he was like, dance. And so I was like, what is this gonna be on? And he said, the internet?
that was a very fun one to me. And just again, I think it fit with the theme, kind of the way Mike treated Sally, everything like that. Very on point there. That brings us to our favorite moment or scene from Commit to You. Jamie G, my turn to go first here. You brought it up in your quote, like kind of Gene and Janice's weird flirting at the end of the date was going to be there. So, I'm going to go with, I did mention earlier, but I absolutely loved it. So I need to put it on the paper like the banana nutriment. It's when Barry's having his little fantasy and he tells John Hamm, who's really here playing himself, that he can go ahead and take a shit in any of his 5 guest rooms. And Barry is so proud of that, like that he can tell, yeah, John Hamm, go take a shit in any of my 5 guest rooms. Jamie G, favorite scene or moment?
I'm going back to your second favorite setting, and that's the LAPD Tech Department. That little minute to 2 minute scene there, we highlighted it earlier in this podcast. It's fantastic. It's such, and again, we're not getting a ton of Moss up until this point, and now we're starting to see Moss in multiple scenes of the episode. And she's her. You can see her character is going to become someone that looks like it's going to be a regular appearance for us. So I thought this was hilarious, dude, between Loesch and her and the Russian tech guy and Tech Guy 2, Magnum Mills' favorite tech guy number 2 out there in the universe. Yeah, this worked well.
Jamie G, yes, thank you for mentioning Tech Guy 2. He's a real good one.
He's a real one. He'll be with you forever. We hold him in our hearts. Tech Guy 2, shout out to you. And speaking of who else we hold in our hearts, it's our Greek freak of assassin. Okay, this is our MVP of the episode, one of my favorite things we do. And I guess I'm on the hot seat here first. I'm going to go first, Magnum Mills, and give you my Greek freak, my MVP. This was a tough one because not a lot of people win in this. I'm going to say, though, honestly, dude, you may call me crazy here, but I'm actually going with Taylor, the Marine buddy. And here's why. This is a dude who is down on his luck, can't adjust to being, a civilian life. He figures out Barry's got some shit going on. He sniffs it out, and he's going to get some action and some fun and some money and all the things that he wants. I got to go with him, dude. I mean, he ended this, we only got him for a limited amount of time, but he literally went from drinking beers and, slapping faces with a fellow Marine, just slapping dick, just being a goofball to like now literally getting into some legitimate shit that he clearly wants to be a part of. So I'm going with Taylor.
Nice, dude. I can appreciate that. And I have to go with Gene, dude. Like, you've already gone to him this season, but he I don't know if he somehow senses that Janice is operating on his frequency or whatever it is, but he kicks his strange game and it seems to work. And Janice seems like a catch to me. So I have to go with Gene Cousineau.
Because I'm the Fonz, huh? Hey.
We're not Roddy Tees. We might try, but we can just do our best. So we have to give it grade 2, Commit to You, in honor of Henry Winkler, Gene Cousineau himself. We grade each episode of Barry on a scale of 1 to 10 Fonzies. Hey, I am up first here. I have to give my grade. It's probably going to be the lowest grade I give to an episode of Barry ever, but it is 7.2 Fonzies. Again, that's still passing, not a bad episode, but I can see the flaws in it. So based on where I've rated the other episodes so far this season, I feel 7.2 is fair. Jamie G, where are you on the Gravitron Ferris wheel of the Fonzies of the jukebox of Commit to You?
Well, I'm spinning stuck to the wall, just like, hey, but on the old Gravitron. Shout out Gravitron, dude, and definitely puked one time coming off the Gravitron. So minimum of one time. I think you didn't do the Gravitron right if you didn't puke when you got out. One thing I will say about this is I'm there with you. This is going to be a lower grade, certainly than I've given out so far, and maybe that I'll give out again. But I'm going 7.4 Fonzies. Hey, again, it's not the worst grade in the world, but it's this felt like an episode where it wasn't as fun as the 3 episodes prior to this. So, for that reason, it's got to be the lowest scoring one for me.
This is above D for Diploma. Every episode of Barry is a good episode of television. And that wraps up our awards and brings us to the spoiler section. So if you're watching Barry for the first time, you do not want to be spoiled on anything that happens in future episodes or any other news about the show, go ahead, check out now. Thank you again for checking us out. Barry Podcast, wherever you get it. Find the YouTube channel at Joe Blow Football Show. Please and thank you. Tune in next week. But for everyone else, this is our spoiler discussion. And dude, I honestly forgot that we actually got to see like Chris's kid and wife.
Yeah,
like it was quick, but like, and that comes back in season 3 and kind of crucial. And I actually forgot that we actually saw him.
Yeah, and you got to love that scene too. Just I know we're not talking about it anymore, but just everything's like they're really kind of laying into like being a Marine, and just every word's like "fuck, man, fucking wild, fucking kids, fuck." It's just
Well, I mean, that's Barry like a little bit like he doesn't know what to say, so he just kind of like saying shit back to Chris because I don't think Barry can really process like having kids. But like the other two dudes, like Taylor and Vaughn, are definitely like just had money. Like they're just basically full on like they just got off a deployment. They're just going nuts or something.
Yeah, and I will say one thing here too is we kind of get to see the start of Sally and Barry's unhealthy relationship as that continues on, and I think it's very much so a enabling codependency type relationship, and you kind of see it as it plays on. And I think this was really the start of it.
Yeah, and I think you get a little bit of the idea too that when Sally said like when they almost hooked up in the previous episode, they're like, "Oh, I can't do this again." So you do get the idea that this isn't her first rodeo. But I will say, like, when she gives that speech to Barry about, like, you can't tell me what I am, like, that really feels like the Sally we've seen, like, through season 3. Like, that's her. And same thing with Fuchs. Like, this seems to be at the point where, like, all right, this is, like, the fully formed Fuchs to the point where I don't know if this is the actual first guy, depends on the order, but it seems that Fuchs is like had multiple people commit suicide rather than like continuing to listen to him.
I mean, there's got to be some sort of, it's a terrible record, but there's got to be some sort of record out there for Fuchs. I mean, that's, one would be enough, but he has multiples. That tells you what type of dude Fuchs is.
Yeah. Like multiple people are just like, literally, I'm going to go like, yeah, this is not great. And whether it was Vaughn or Taylor, I think you might be right, it was Taylor, but remember like Bull here like comes in and then Fuchs eventually recruits his sister to be a revenge panther in season 3, pointing out like, oh dude, there could be who would not put a hot tub there, which also leads to Fuchs getting shot in probably one of the worst scenes in the history of the show. So
yeah, it wasn't quite as bad as, I don't know, spoiler alert on something for Ozark if you're still listening, but it wasn't quite as bad as the fucking car crash in Ozark that I just still cannot forgive them for, but it was pretty bad. The bullet point blank range to Fuchs, who then a day later he's fine. Not even a day, maybe 8 hours.
Jamie G, like Huey Lewis in the News once said, that's the power of love, dude.
The power of love. Can you feel it?
And the crispy critters. You gotta have crispy critters.
You gotta have crispy critters. And you know what else you gotta have is more Barry. And so don't you worry. This is a wrap on chapter 4. Commit to You. I do want to point out that this maybe the worst episode of Barry. It's still better than the best episode of many, many, many shows. So you shouldn't be surprised that I'm pretty pumped to watch chapter 5, Do Your Job, which is up next. Anything to add here, Mills, before we bounce?
I mean, to quote Fitty, there are many, many, many shows, but I don't think anyone's wishing death on us or Barry. But it does appear like season 4 will be the last season of Barry. But it also appears that we have a chance to finish covering all the episodes we haven't covered yet, half of season 1, all of season 2. We might get there before they start. Given the track record of the show, they say they want to start to be able to make that Emmy window, but they've, they're not Ashanti, dude. Like, whatever they are not always on time. So that's all I can say.
And they're definitely not going to always be there when you call. And Mills, that is what she said. Thanks again for checking out the Barry podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed our show and we added something to your overall Barry experience. That's what we're here for. Whether you're doing the rewatch or checking out Barry for the first time, we got you. We got you. Please remember to like, subscribe, comment, all of those things. Mills, anything we're forgetting here?
No, you did pretty good. You just got to give them the various details. Just remember, you can find us on your podcast platform, on social media. Just search for Barry Podcast. You can find the YouTube channel at JoeBlowFootballShow.com. And that's basically it. Thank you one more time for checking us out. On behalf of myself, Megan Mills, and Jamie G, the co-presidents of the Mitch Fan Club. We'll see you next time on the Barry Podcast.
And always remember to turn off Wi-Fi before you press the detonate button.